Welcome to Pod Maverick After Dark. It's Kirk Henderson and Josh Bowe joining you for another episode. Are we joining you in the middle of a finals game? Yes, we are. Are we hosting a live show 2 days later than we normally do? Yes, we are. Shit happens, though. It's the off season, and as much as Josh and I have every intention of sticking to a regular posting schedule, sometimes it's just not going to happen. Josh, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. And, I mean, this time it wasn't even anyone's fault this time. It was an act of God and nature that prevented us from staying on our normal posting schedule. My power was out all night Tuesday when we normally record. So we planned on it, but hey, what are you going to do?
Yeah, and by all night, you quite literally
till 3:30 from 4:30 p.m. till 3:30.
Yeah, you told me, you're like, hey, this is probably going to be a thing. Check your mic connection real quick. So it sounds like you're coming through the computer. Just a little bit of echo. That's going to happen though. So what on earth are Josh and I going to talk about tonight? So for those who might be listening to this at a later date, we're recording on June 1st. The NBA draft is not for. What is it? It's the 20, I think draft's 22nd, something like that. So we got a couple, we have this kind of dead time to kill. And, now we're kind of seeing what I was bitching about last week on my live show on Friday, where I said, this is where knowing who the Mavericks are working out could generate some low stakes, fun discussion stuff. But instead, the Mavericks are just not in the media at all. We got a cool looking Luka Doncic clip of him running up some stairs. We've had some interesting kind of, back and forth about whether or not the Mavericks have a handshake deal with Kyrie. One thing we have had, and this is going to be coming to our site next week, is our CBA expert, CBA Mavs, Scott. I think he finally had a chance to dip into the CBA. I mean, he does this, on his own time. And I will tell you what, man, this CBA is bad news. I really, earnest to God, cannot understand why the players signed it. Because if you listen to any of Bill Simmons talking about this on his show with Ryan Russillo, it effectively destroys the NBA middle class. I know I sound like a politician talking about economics, but the last CBA gave guys let's just say Harrison Barnes, for example, a chance to make a ton of money. And this upcoming CBA, what it does is places such strict penalties for teams that are well above certain lines of the tax to make it so it disincentivizes spending money as a team owner. Which I can't fucking fathom that. Why would you want less money in the salary pool? Why would owners that also or teams that spend less money generally want the luxury tax redistribution stuff to be taken out? It is crazy. And I'm thinking about that in terms of the Mavericks because I've specifically been thinking about it in terms of the Mavericks, obviously because we run a Mavericks website. It's going to kick the shit out of the Mavericks. But it's also going to kick the shit out of half the league because it effectively makes it to where you can have a max of 2 stars and then everybody else is getting paid very little money. The JaVale McGee deals, those $6 to $12 million, those are gone in the way it looks like. I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Say goodbye to we've already been kind of fading away from the 3-star team that LeBron started in Miami 10 years ago. So we've already been trending that direction, but this CBA will make that official. There's no way you can have 3-star max level players on your team. And yeah, it's gonna be weird. In a weird way, yeah, the Mavericks are gonna be screwed by it because it's gonna make it harder to trade future picks when you reach a certain level, and that's kind of all the Mavericks have been banking on, trading future picks because they don't have any picks coming up anytime soon, aside from obviously the one they're about to have right now,
Right.
in June. So that's gonna hurt. But honestly, these teams are gonna have to work the margins even better than before, and I think that's something that the Mavericks have shown they have the ability to do, but they have not done a great job of it the last, I'd say, 4 to 5 years. When you look at like who they're spending their exceptions on and who they're spending their minimum contracts on, so they're going to have to get way better at that because that's going to be like the only way they're going to be able to add players to this roster in the next like 3 to 4 years when Luka's still making $1 billion or whatever.
Well, and you'd normally, like, one of my big criticisms of the Mavericks for the past 20 plus years is they do a pretty decent job at the draft when they care about it, only they've clearly elected not to care about it for like 15 of the last 20 years. I normally criticize the Mavericks for not building through the draft, but even still, this thing punishes teams that draft well because you have to make a Sophie's choice between players because you can't afford to hold on to your guys. Ronald in the chat asks a good question. Do you guys know when the new CBA will take effect? It's not this business year. Next, going into the 2024-25 season is the first year it takes effect. Now, here's why I think that question's funny. Not funny, a good question. Normally, when you do something like when you make an overhaul in how you are going to be doing business, like the NBA is doing, they essentially give you a year to help get your house in order, to be prepared to deal with the challenges. What do you think the Dallas Mavericks will do with a year to get their books in order? Will they do that? Or will they go on one last ride like it's a Vegas gambling? It's my final $200 before I'm broke. I'm heading very quickly into like dark Kirk pessimistic mode because I don't see a way out from this.
Books. Yeah, it's really Scott shared it. It has nothing really even to do with the CBA, but Scott shared like a screenshot of Real GM because they've got the future picks owed like thing for each team, and the Mavericks one is just it's so funny. It's 0 picks incoming, and then the outgoing picks is just like a big long list. With the first rounder they still have to give to New York, the first rounder they got to give to Brooklyn for Kyrie, and then like 8 second rounders that they still have to trade at that they still are on the books for. And yeah, it's gonna make picks more valuable, short-term picks more valuable. And like you look at these teams in the West, like Memphis and New Orleans, that are already like pretty good. And like New Orleans has a bunch of additional picks coming their way. Memphis has like, I think like 1 or 2 first rounders coming their way aside from their own. Like it's going to be really hard for them to build in the future unless they can find a way to trades. Like they can trade someone for an additional draft pick. If they can trade down to get multiple, a future pick, that's going to start looking more attractive, I think, in the next couple months, considering what this CBA is going to do to them team building wise.
Yeah. And that kind of serves as an interesting segue. Our friend, former colleague, former boss, Tim Cato, did an article on The Athletic asking the question to his colleagues there at The Athletic, if the Mavericks get who can the Mavericks get if they trade the number 10 pick? And I hate them.
I haven't read this. What is the name? I know I thought 72 hours for me have been awful, so I've been out of the loop.
Well, okay. So
this will be fun for me. Tell me the name.
So there's 5 of them. 2 Raptors, one's so it's like the first trade, the Mavericks get Chris Boucher, Otto Porter Jr. The Raptors get the 10th pick and Davis Bertans.
Oh, God.
Basically trading the pick to get off salary. That's the first one. And the second one, says the Mavericks get OG Anunoby, Thaddeus Young. The Raptors get Tim Hardaway Jr., Josh Green in the number 10 pick. That would make sense, except for the Raptors guy goes, no.
Right.
Like, that's fair. So then this one's probably the one that everyone is kind of latched onto, but I want to really put and a couple people for our site enjoyed it, which was traded to Atlanta. The Mavericks get Clint Capella and the number 15 pick. The Hawks get Tim Hardaway Jr. and the number 10 pick. This would be an interesting one and feels like probably the most likely of all of these on the list. I just like Clint Capella's 29 and he's played a lot. And so I'm just like, are you like trading for another big man on his decline is not, I'm just not interested. Me personally.
Yeah, that one's tough because when you say he's 29, I actually kind of get taken aback. I thought he was already into his 30s because he's been around
forever.
Right. Yeah. And he's played a lot because he basically came up with the Houston James Rockets team. So he's been in the playoffs his whole career. So he's played a lot of games. He has not great like his injury, like he always misses like 10 to 15 games a season. Like he hasn't gotten through a healthy season in a long time.
Yep.
I mean, he does bring a lot of what they need. I mean, he's, I think when he's on the floor, he would be a pretty useful player for them. I don't know how many years are left on his contract. That might be an incentive for it. I think he's only got like 2, maybe a couple of years left. I don't think it's that long. So that might be part of the incentive to do it. And 15, you might still get the guy you wanted at 10 anyway. So, and Tim is honestly trading Tim and not getting.
Yeah, this final year of his deal. That's why.
Yeah, then that makes a lot of sense. So the thing I'm worried about with trading Tim is you trade Tim and he is your high volume 3-point shooter. Like I know Kyrie Irving, if you bring him back, he's one as well, but he's still like a play starter for the most part.
2 years. I'm sorry, I can't read.
Oh, 2 years. Well, even 2 years is still not that bad. But I worry what the Mavericks will do. Like they would have to use that pick, I think, on someone that can shoot because this roster without Tim Hardaway Jr. and you don't replace it with another high volume shooter, I don't know what it looks like.
Well, and the Mavericks record when Tim Hardaway didn't play was hilariously bleak. Like,
or when he shot bad or when he shot good, the splits.
Yeah.
Because Luke is like the greatest 3-point shooter, 3-point shot creator in the league.
Yeah.
If you take away Tim, place him with a center, like, Kyrie, outside of Kyrie, like who's getting up the threes? Like it's nice that Josh Green can shoot a high percentage, but like they need someone that can get up 8 to 9 threes a game and like playing a large role because like that's like who's Luka going to be passing it to all game? So if they did that trade, hopefully there's someone in that range, that 15th pick that they feel like they can develop into a high volume shooter role, or they feel like they have someone they can get with the exception. That would be my worry though if they made that trade.
So the next one that he had was another trade with the Hawks, and this one's fascinating for similar reasons. DeAndre Hunter in the number 15 pick for Josh Green, Davis Bertans in the number 10 pick. I don't see why the Hawks would do this.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, Hunter has been he's a bundle of tools, but to be quite honest, Matthew Phillips of Mavs Moneyball made this argument last year that I just sticks in my head, and I think he's right. Dorian Finney-Smith just as good as Hunter. Hunter is a bundle of tools and is never executed in the way that he needs to. He's 6'8" and has a lot of ability, but he's never really put it together.
I mean, he's a vastly better offensive player than Dort. Like they're not even in the same league as offensive players, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I could say it's just availability is a thing,
right? And I know that's a big part of it.
The Hunter of it all is just like, okay, you see it on paper, you're like, oh, that'd be a great guy to pair in the backcourt kind of thing with him because he's a wing. He's what you're looking for. That one is interesting to me, but I still am just kind of like, yeesh.
Yeah, I think I like that one more than the Capella one because I think it'll be easier to replace what they're trading out at 15. Like I don't know if they can find a Tim Hardaway replacement at 15. Like that'll be tough. But I know, but again, I don't know why the Hawks would do it because they're basically trading. I mean, you're downgrading from Josh Green, I guess, to get to 10. I don't know because Hunter, like he has his warts and he can't really stay on the floor. He's never played 70 games in a season.
Yep.
But he's still 25 and he just averaged 15-4 on decent shooting. Like he's a career 14 points per game guy with and he's a defensive minded guy. When he came into the league, I don't know how good his defense is right now, but like that's why like when you mentioned Dorian, like the Dorian thing, I was kind of like Dorian's averaged double digits once in like 8 years, and Hunter's done it all 4 years. Like they're maybe Dorian's a better defender. I could
I'm probably not being fair. The Hunter of it all, he makes a lot. Like he signed for a pretty good contract extension. If I remember, let me go see what he's making here.
But I wonder if his contract is more valuable with this.
He signed a 4 for $90. So he's making a good amount of money for the next 3 years, $20 million a year for the next 4. Yeah, because this would be the first year of his extension. Which that's just the fact. I just, maybe the Hawks would be trying to get out from under it for the exact same reason that we had just been talking about relative to the CBA. And I just don't know. I don't hate it. I am also just sort of confused by it. But for full disclosure, I'm kind of in the current process of the off season where I just don't feel good about anything.
I know we like the draft. We just, we like the draft, so that's kind of where we lean.
Well, but anything. What I like about a lot of these trades so far, and the next one has the same issue, is like the Mavericks keep a pick.
Yeah,
so keeping a pick is interesting to me. I think after we're done talking about this, I think we should maybe really talk about some of the elements of trading back in general that I've been thinking about. But we'll come back to that. So the next one is a pick with the Nets. Royce O'Neal, Patty Mills, and the number 21 pick for Davis Bertans, and the number 10 overall pick. We discussed this one today in our Slack. It's kind of interesting. I love, like Tim leads off with, Dallas would love to bring back Dorian Finney-Smith, but the team isn't eligible to trade for him. Just as an aside, guys, no.
You didn't watch a minute of him with the Nets if you want him back on the team.
Not a minute. And it's just like, guys, like the Mavericks I love what Dorian gave the team. He gave it his all, but he was also he before Luka Doncic came, he shot 30% from 3. After Luka Doncic came, he shot 38% from 3. Luka Doncic was no longer in charge of his 3-point shots when he goes to Brooklyn. He goes back to shooting ass. These things are related. Anyway, but I don't hate this one. I
think this one I would need the other pick they have in the 20s. Like I would need both of their late picks.
Volume?
But yeah, just because I don't know number 21. Like Royce O'Neal's okay. Patty Mills. I think he's almost out of the league, right? I mean, like he didn't really do much for them last year. I don't even know if he would be in the Mavericks rotation right now. And I know the joke is like, well, the Mavericks only have like 3 good players, but like Patty Mills did not do a lot last season. But Royce is nice. He would be a nice player. But I would want, maybe because Bertans, that's just like, I don't know. I think the Nets have 21 and 22. I think I would try to squeeze them and see if I can get 22 out of it also, because that would make more sense to me. Because you're going down, 11 spots.
Well, and I've kind of heard that one of the things that is being targeted is that the Portland Trailblazers may move out of 3 to go get who's my guy?
Bridges.
Bridges up in Brooklyn, and maybe at that point because the Nets have some weird pick trade, like they're kind of gonna have to figure out a way to rebuild their team. Because they gave away a whole lot to get James Harden. And
then they got some of it back to get when they traded James Harden. They're weird.
But it's a weird situation. So they're going to have to make some odd choices in the future. So I don't know. I don't hate
that one.
Yeah. This one is a non-starter. Trade number 6. Sacramento's Mavericks get Rashawn Holmes. The Kings get Davis Bertans. Both Tim. Basically, there's no reason for the Kings to do it. So why would they do it? Then he has one trade with the Pelicans. The Mavericks get Larry Nance Jr., Willie Hernan-Gomez, Garrett Temple. The Pelicans get Reggie Bullock and JaVale McGee. Mike Prada, who is filling in for the Pelicans here, says it's like I could kind of see it, but the Larry Nance, he just basically says Larry Nance is too important to what the Pelicans do. I think that's true. So that's kind of the full list.
Yeah, I think the only way that trade makes sense is if instead of JaVale, it's Maxey, but then the Mavericks probably don't do it. Because Larry he's pretty important for what they want to do.
Yeah, so then that, now we're kind of in this interesting spot where we're talking about different guys overall at 10. What I've seen, and I've participated in some mock drafts with various guys from Draft Twitter, is there's going to be at least 1 or 2 late risers in this draft. The Derek Lively? The Derek Lively of it all is so fascinating to me because I get why teams and players like him. 7'1", he's hitting threes and workouts. But again, he played 20 minutes at Duke and didn't really do too much outside of, he shot terribly, frankly, particularly from distance. And he did have some blocks, and I see the tools. But for me, understanding where I think the Mavericks are as a team, where they're trying to skirt this line between, drafting for need, drafting for, the immediate, and then also positioning themselves with somebody to grow. I don't think you can really select a guy like Lively who is raw. And that's just me, just my thoughts, because I don't think, like, big men, like, we kind of undervalue this because everyone is so excited. Jaden Hardy, look what he did. Jaden Hardy's defensive responsibilities and Derek Lively's defensive responsibilities are on 2 different fucking planets. Big men have a much harder job because they have to cover everywhere. And, shorter guys just have less responsibility. That's just a fact in today's NBA.
Now, would your opinion of this change if the Mavericks took Derek Lively at 15 or 21?
Yes.
And they did one of these trades.
I think Lively is one of these guys that's going to be a late riser.
Okay. So you don't think he'll even make it that far?
I mean, he might. Like, draft stuff gets weird because people rise and fall. We still got 3 weeks. I mean, this is like, again, I commented earlier this week that I'm pretty sure Luka Doncic fell to 3 because of Mina Kimes' article and how he ate nachos at a because this is how stupid, like, teams get way too much time to overthink this. You see it happen in all sports drafts. It's crazy. The obvious guy just doesn't go where he ought to go. But I'm hopeful in this respect where at 10, there's just going to be some guys there. When I participated in a draft earlier this week, Jarris Walker of Houston was there. Now, you're probably thinking, Kirk, you just said you don't want a young, raw big man. 6'8", like, human monster. Jarris Walker is a different physical beast than Derek Lively.
Well, I also played a much more important role for a really good team.
For a really good team.
But Lively was just
I'm not a big, like, draft Nick. I don't want to claim to be, but Kelvin Sampson teams my entire life have been staffed by, like, lunatics on defense. Guys that play hard. And the Mavericks need a banger. If he's there at 10, for me, as of this moment, you take that guy, no question. Then you look at some of the other guys who may fall. And it's just basically what you want to do when I'm talking about this, guys, is go look at the mock drafts and look at anyone slotted from 5 to 10, 15 and say to yourself, do I see any of these guys rising and falling? I don't think Cam Whitmore is going to be there by any stretch. I think someone like the Washington Wizards painfully will take my guy, Anthony Black. That will make me sad. But I think at this point with that 10th pick, with what we're looking at, unless the Mavericks receive some kind of really superior offer to both pick up a player and a potential for a future asset, I really just want them to take the best guy. They're not going to do that, but that's what I want.
Yeah, especially with, like you said, there's, like, Lively feels like a guy in workouts that's going to go up the board because, again, you said he's got all the tools. Like, he's going to probably look really good in workouts. If he's making jumpers, then he's going to look like a top 10 guy. So yeah, I don't know. It's really funny. Like, there's like a kind of a consensus top 9 forming. And I like all of, like, the top 9. And if just one of those guys falls, whether it's Jarris Walker, whether it's Taylor Hendricks, whether it's Anthony Black, like, those are the 3 that I'm running to the phone to call that pick in, just as soon as I can. Like I love those guys. I just don't, what's also we don't know is there's a lot of teams in the top 10 that don't also are like the Mavericks that don't want to develop a rookie. Like Portland wants to win just as bad as the Mavs do. Washington has been adrift forever, and they've got Bradley Beal and Kristaps Porzingis. Do they want another, high draft pick? Like Charlotte is kind of weird. Like I think there's like three or four teams above the Mavericks that have been rumored that they also want to trade, whether it's trade down or trade for like an impact player. So who knows? Like maybe another team jumps in that we don't even know about, and they take.
I think that's likely.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. It's hard to predict, but Lively is like the kind of guy that I'm always talking about. Where people, it's like why spend your mid-level exception on JaVale McGee when you can draft these guys in the 20s or outside of the lottery. Like you look at like a Mitchell Robinson, a Rob Williams. Hell, Rudy Gobert was taken outside of the lottery too. Like you can find big men outside of the lottery in the first round or the top of the second, and you can get what you're looking for. Because the guys that can shoot and stuff, like they're obviously going to be like the top 5. But the guys that can't shoot, teams are going to pick wings and guards over centers that can't shoot right now because of the way the NBA is. But you still need one of those guys. So like Lively would be like a great, like if they did trade down and they were able to address their wing depth, like whether it's a Royce O'Neal or DeAndre Hunter, and then at 15 or 20 or whatever it is, you take, if Lively's still there, that's where it makes a lot more sense to take a more developmental kind of big, because you just look at the history of some of these young big men that are starting right now. I think that's a pretty good spot to take a big like that. But yeah, at 10, no, I'm looking for someone. If they keep that pick at 10, I'm looking for someone they can slot into the starting lineup and start playing right away.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy to consider that some of these guys might be available. Like it feels like the guy. It's so interesting at the moment. Asar Thompson, who has long been considered, I'm talking like 2 years, been considered the lesser of the two Thompson twins, is sort of slipping in conversations because his brother, Amen Thompson, is a worse shooter. Like that's just factually true. The difference between the two of these guys is that Amen Thompson might be the best athlete to come into this draft in a long time. I mean, if you want to consider Zion like a one-of-one athlete, like he's in, Kevin O'Connor gets killed for his like skinny Zion comp. But what I talked to Kevin, what he means is like preposterous athlete. And Asar's he's a grade below athletically, but they're both so fantastic basketball. It's just people do wild things at this point in the draft where it's just you start thinking about it and is Taylor Hendricks gonna I just don't see Taylor Hendricks slipping. It cannot either. But at the same time, I see these drafts, these mock drafts, and Taylor Hendricks keeps being there. I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah,
I don't understand it.
Yeah, it's weird. But yeah, like I'm looking at like I know it is, and I'm looking at like one of the mocks, and like I don't even want to say, obviously the top 3 is the top 3. I mean, even the top 5 probably we shouldn't talk about, but like you go from 4 to 9. Let's just do that. And it's, the Tankathon mock, which isn't really like, that's not ironclad or anything.
No.
But it just gives a good idea of like players in that range. So 4 through 10, is Amen Thompson, Cam Whitmore, Asar Thompson, Jarris Walker, Taylor Hendricks, Anthony Black. And then it's the Mavericks at 10. Like any of those guys I just mentioned from 4 through 9, if one of those guys can drop to 10, like I'm running to the phone, I'm calling it in, and I don't even care what the trade package is. Like
I agree.
If it's Anthony Black, if it's Hendricks, if it's Walker, somehow Thompson, somehow Whitmore, those are the ones that are a little too, I think, far-fetched for me. But Walker, Hendricks, Black, who are all projected to be like the 3 picks right above the Mavericks. If one of those guys can get to 10, I'm kind of falling in love with all 3 of those guys to the point where I don't care what the trade is. I just want one of those 3 guys.
That's where that is a great, it's best to have conflict on a pod, but that is more or less where I am as well. One thing I have kind of found interesting in readings over the past few days is that Brandon Miller is apparently just shitting the bed in all of his interviews.
Mm-hmm.
And so my question becomes, how far does that guy fall? How far does, he's the oldest of almost all these draft guys. When you go take a look at the top, Jordan Hawkins, who's in the top, he's projected 12th on the Tankathon one. The Mavericks actually interviewed him a couple weeks ago. Those are the two players in the top 15. I'm really curious, it's gonna be fun, and I'm really looking forward to going on vacation, but I'm very sort of like frustrated that I wasn't paying attention when I booked my vacation as to when the draft was, just because the Mavericks don't care about the draft. I never think about this shit.
Yeah, it feels like what Charlotte and Portland do is going to set like the rest of the lottery, like because they're the two question marks. Like,
I guess like just for discourse, for sheer discourse, like for the humor of it all, if Brandon Miller fell, what if the Mavericks traded up for him? Oh, that'd be amazing just for the comment, just for the content, because apparently he's been advised when going to interviews. Seriously, I'm not kidding about this. He's been advised when going to draft interviews to not discuss anything related to his involvement with that shooting.
Well, then that explains why his interviews are going so poor.
Right. And then he shows up out of shape, and it's kind of like it's wild stuff where I'm just like, how, because not to get, this is not our business, but basically the Alabama, like the police department where he went to college, they've said they can't charge him. They don't have anything to charge him with. But there's just like this haze lingering over it. It's similar to the, some of these football players that were there for that guy who died in like the reckless driving accident. It's just like when you're around weird stuff, it tends to impact, your draft stats. That's one I'm kind of keeping an eye on, even though I just because I think the discourse surrounding our team would be like, really, the team that's done this with the various organizational difficulties, like it would suck. Like I would hate covering it, even though he'd probably be a good basketball player for this team. Trying to think if there's like draft wise, we need to know more. Just not to plug, but I'm gonna have on a draft expert next week. Josh and I will probably record Tuesday night, but I'm gonna record with what's wrong? Barlow next week though, so that'll be fun. Rafael Barlow, really looking forward to talking to him. He's based out of the Dallas area, and we're going to be talking about Dallas area prospects, not necessarily like Mavericks related stuff, but I just am fascinated by the DFW pipeline because it's crazy. I mean, and it goes back to my days, and it continued with your days, and it's just you think about the different guys that have come through over the years, and it's really deep, really deep. It's really deep. My brain is just mush at this point. like Cade Cunningham is a Dallas area guy, and the number, let's see here, the 2024 high school basketball rankings. Trying to remember this guy's name. Trey Johnson, right up the road from here at Lake Highlands. He's a 6'5", 180-pound shooting guard. The Ron Holland, who just committed to, I think it's Overtime Elite, or he's going to G League. Maybe I'm right. And who went to Duncanville and was committed to Texas. Like, these are like top players in the nation. Like, we're not talking like top 20. We're talking like top of the top of the top. So I'm very interested to see like why that is. Is that just like steel shaped steel type thing with different guys of that? Anyways, I'm getting off track. That's going to be the discussion I'm having with them next week. What else do we think there is kind of on the horizon? I've been, this finals is going to be, I think the finals might end up being kind of boring just because of the way.
So good.
Yeah. The Denver is so much better. Yeah. So, okay. Obviously the game's over now. They won 104-93, but the Heat were never really in it, and they got a 26-point, 13 rebound performance out of Bam Adebayo, and that doesn't happen 2 games in a row. I'm trying to think if like there are any like Maverick related takeaways from these playoffs, and the only thing I keep kind of coming back to is last year when the Mavericks were in the playoffs, they didn't understand just how tightly bound they were to a Luka Doncic, Jalen Brunson combination. They didn't understand just how important that was to their winning. And right now, when you look at the roster, it's what we've been saying for 5 years. It's just like that was held together by Luka, paper mache, and Brunson in a way I didn't fully understand. And now they don't really have anything. I mean, they have Kyrie, but I going back to our CBA conversation, if they were to sign Kyrie to like a 4-year max, I think they have to, but I also think that's insane,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because the question is, what do you do? What do you do if you don't do that?
You open up some cap space, but you open up like 19 million.
Yeah,
it's not enough.
Yeah, what are you going to get for that? Yeah, I don't know. Just watching these teams play. I mean, it's like you said, it's the same thing the last 5 years. The Mavericks are just like woefully behind in terms of athleticism, in terms of talent, in terms of starting caliber players. We make the joke about like if these two teams play, Luka would be the best. You'd rank Luka 1, and then the next 7 ranked players, they'd all be the other team. Now with Kyrie, that's a different story. But okay, then 3 through 7 are probably still the other team. Yeah, it's just a matter of they just need talent, and they need to fill out the 3 through 6 spots in this roster that they have pretty much ignored, or they've really struck out the last 5 years. Whether they tried with DeLon Wright, they tried with Josh Richardson and Seth Curry. They've tried to bolster their starting rotation over the last couple of years, and it hasn't gone well. And so, they really need a wing. They really need they really need a lot. Is kind of what I'm watching from watching these teams.
It's a lot. It's a lot, and I do think there's a fun argument about the West being similarly wide open past Denver next year, maybe, but it can't just be Luka Doncic good. And granted, I sort of think, we talked about this in the live show last time. Luka's going to have 3.5 months off of basketball. And someone pointed this out to me. I asked this very stupid question. I said, when was the last time Luka had this much time off from basketball? And one of our followers said, well, when the NBA shut down before the bubble, which is a great answer because it's like clearly from March until August, because I'm pretty sure it was August when the bubble kicked back up. Maybe it was September. Luka came into the bubble looking like a basketball god. Mm-hmm. He was out of control in the bubble. And granted, that whole year, 2019, 2020, he was pretty fucking incredible. Mm-hmm. And I feel hopeful about it. There was a great story. She's not my favorite journalist, but Ramona Shelburne wrote a really good story today on when it clicked for Jokic that he had to become better. And it was on ESPN Daily. I think the name of their podcast today was, and like Jokic has been considered a basketball savant going back to his teen years, but he looked dumpy. And didn't always love it. And
there wasn't that long ago that some of the stuff we're talking about with Luka, the same conversations were around Jokic.
Well, it's like there was that reminder. Do you remember that incredible like quadruple overtime game with Portland that the Nuggets lost, where Jokic played 64 minutes? And it's like, could you imagine Luka playing? And this is not a shot at Luka. He's a younger man he's faced adversity, but he's always conquered stuff. And Matthew Phillips wrote about this today, a couple days ago. He said he wrote an article called "Failure is the First Step on the Path to Success," which I've just been really thinking about lately, in that I will continue to expect great things from Luka because Luka is a great player. And when we can criticize Luka, it is much more in the vein of Luka will always have reasons that, the team building around Luka, he has to leave that up to them. He has to control the things within his ability to control in order to come out and really help this team succeed. And, I'm looking forward to seeing what he plays with Slovenia. They play late July and then August and September. And so, hopefully we're going to get a really, I don't know, splitting the difference between the svelte and the power. Like, he's come in looking very different in multiple seasons, sometimes heavy, but also sometimes just like thick. And some of that comes with aging. Like his head is bigger than it was his rookie year. And I mean that like in a literal sense. Like you go, and I like, it's like funny. You go look at pictures of yourself in college and then like in your mid-20s, you look different. Your body changes. I'm kind of rambling at this point, but I find myself at like a odd mix of emotions of where I feel very challenged by the Mavericks future, but still very bullish on the Luka Doncic future.
Yeah, he'll always give you a chance, and even with if they have Kyrie and that stays normal, they will. I mean, they will be in every game, like as long as those two guys are on the floor. If they bring back Kyrie, which is just crazy to think about a team that only won 38 games last year. You know, remember that? What was that wild thing I kept talking about? I was like, they just don't get blown out. Like they're losing, but they're in these games. So it's like, on one hand, they are super far away because just in terms of what they have available to them to build the roster, but also it's like if they can just get lucky like 2 or 3 times, like in the next 3 years, that might be enough because Luka is that good. So it's interesting to think about it that way.
It is. So here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm kind of thinking, because, you know, we could continue. One of the things I've probably talked with Nick and Isaac about this before, but like, I don't envy the fact that they're kind of obligated to do a daily post because I would just shoot my mouth off so fucking much. Instead I do that once a week instead of every day. I'm going to host the live show tomorrow, mid-afternoon. I'm really, at some point, someone from my job is going to be like, you have to stop doing this. Only like my job is East Coast based. So it's like, I'm basically doing it at 4:00 on Fridays, like when no one's working anyways, who cares? But come join the live show. Ask me some questions. Let's talk about some things. I've enjoyed the kind of questions we've been getting. They're not all draft focused. They're not all free agency focused. You know, free agency is one of those things we've kind of been ignoring because I don't think we want to talk about it. The monster Ben Zadell wrote a fucking Russell Westbrook free agency profile, which he then published, and I just wasn't paying attention. That was fun. It's like, no, I don't want Russell Westbrook. How dare you? So please come hang out with me tomorrow, 3 p.m. I'll put that post up at some point. You can schedule. We'll hang out, and you know, I'll take questions and we can talk about whatever you guys want. You got anything else before we head out of Dodge?
No, I think that's about it. But we're
so we don't talk about this stuff enough, and I don't care if people don't care. How is Josh spending his leisure time now when you don't have 2 podcasts and a basketball site to think about every moment of for 6 straight months?
Right now all my free time's going to Zelda.
Good. Okay, that's where I was going to ask you about that because the boy and I
You're playing through the first one, right?
We're playing Breath of the Wild,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm doing it 2-track where some nights I'm playing by myself in under a different profile to get ahead. And then he plays and I play. Sometime it's maybe like a half an hour before he goes to bed, maybe 1 or 2 nights a week. And then like Saturday and Sunday mornings. And it's just incredible, man. It's really incredible.
It really is.
I'm really mad that I didn't play it prior, but I also think I was just not like, because it came out 2017. I got my wife. Isn't that right? About right?
Yeah, 2017. So
I got my wife.
Parker would have been young, right?
Well,
yeah.
We didn't have a Wii then, or a Switch then. We got the Switch during COVID because my wife wanted something to play. And I remember pulling it up, and like that was right when we had taken over the site. And like at that point in time, every day was true like nails on a chalkboard anxiety. I probably should have played it. I think it might have been a great stress reliever, but it's
something else.
Just incredible.
There's nothing else like it. Yeah.
Well, the real logic stuff is really fun. And for him,
the second one cranks that up to 1 million.
And that I'm a little terrified of because right now I end up playing more than my son because the combat like stresses him out because we're at the point right now where he will like do stuff when I'm not paying attention. We'll like break half our weapons, like swinging them at trees. And I'm like, man, stop it. And he doesn't care. But it's really fun to like go into some of the shrines and really like, and just do logic based stuff where even though he can't do the controls for me, he can say, well, what if we try this?
Yes.
And that's really neat.
He's going to
really neat.
The what if we try this part of the next one, it's like they lean into that, and
what
it's
if
going to
we
be great.
What if we said Dallas Mavericks that Mark Cuban play Breath of the Wild and try things instead of the same linear path every fucking time? What if we signed 2 stars? What if we signed anyway? Well, we'll be back. I'll be back tomorrow. You and I will be back probably next Tuesday night.
Mhm.
Everybody enjoy, the finals as much as you can. I know people love railing on a bad it's like, oh, well, it's not going to be fun. It's like, fuck this. Watching Jokic play basketball is amazing. Enjoy things being amazing. Don't care about the narrative. Have fun watching basketball.
You don't have stock in the NBA. The ratings don't matter to you.
No, who gives? Yeah, anybody that talks about that stuff is in it for themselves. Like, I don't care.
You're not a shareholder in the NBA. You're fine.
I'm watching Silo on Apple Plus, and I promise you, Apple Plus is various like money laundering schemes, which is all of their television shows. They don't give a shit who watches them because they just keep making the shows.
Because they have to put that money somewhere. They got too much money.
They have more money than God, so they need to keep reinvesting it somewhere.
I was gonna say we bought the Mario movie. I bought it through Apple because for dorky reasons, because I guaranteed that like their app is really good in terms of like picture quality. So like I wanted to make sure I had the best version if I'm gonna buy it. For watch it. Our family's watching it. Our 2-year-olds watch it like 100 times since we bought it. Yeah, it's great. Yeah. But every time I go in there to like go play the movie, like I see all the crap that's on. Like crap,
it's amazing.
I see all the stuff that's on there. I'm like, holy! I'm like, that's why don't more people talk about this app? Like, there's way more stuff on there than like when I pull up Netflix or when I enter any other app. It's like, oh, what's all this dreck? And then when I open up that app, I'm like, whoa, like
famous people stuff. Like I'm a big sci-fi dork, so I like there's the original science fiction series is this series called Foundation. It's a book series, but they somehow turned it into they Isaac Asimov's Foundation, and they turned it into this Apple Plus show with the monstrous power forward 6'5" Lee Pace as the center of it. And it is it's like watching, you remember you were a couple years younger than me, going to see Lord of the Rings the first time, where you're like, oh my God, this is amazing what they do with this stuff. And that's where it's like, oh, that's where all the good CGI went, is all these Apple Plus shows. That's why Disney can't do any fucking CGI anymore.
Because Apple's doing it all.
That's 10 minutes on Josh and I and how we spend our time doing other stuff than this. Thanks so much for hanging out with this team. We'll hopefully see some of you tomorrow. And if not, we will check in next week. Everybody have a great weekend and go Mavs.